Okay, so the YRC 1000 isn't much different than the FS100. It's got a little bit more capabilities. You could think of it more in the DX range, because it has spline and other things that you can do for welding that we don't have on the FS100. So spline is just like circular movement, but instead of having an arc with a constant radius, you can go through and set inflection points, and it'll follow that curve pretty well. And I can explain that better later, but you essentially just have to program 3 points, and that'll interpolate that arc. So if you've got like a wavy line, you just divide it up into 3s, so whenever it gets to a move S, it looks for the next 2 move S's to dictate what that curve is supposed to look like. So if you have a really complex curve, you'd have to section it in 3. So like 1, 2, and 3 would be one part of that curve, and then 2, 3, and 4 would be another part of that curve. So you're just going to have to think in terms with that. And I'll draw out something there, or see if I can't find a better video that kind of explains that. But instead of putting like 50 move S's or move L's, or just joint moves to copy that curve, you can just use a few move S's. So instead of 30 joint moves, you can do like 9 move S's. I'll be doing a video on that anyway. Like, it's something that I'm going to add into the curriculum since we have those, and that'll help anybody who's going into welding, like to program the robots for welding. Okay, so the YRC comes with both a traditional pendant like we've got and a smart pendant. Now, this is where everything's going. If you see the Kukas, you see these, like, they're pretty powerful, and there's a lot of neat things you can do with them. Kind of at the expense of them being fragile because they're a touchscreen, and at the expense of people not really learning how to use a big pendant. And I don't know how I feel about it because there's still bugs in the new stuff that I'll try to touch on. Or, there's not that many bugs. It's just, I guess anytime anything goes new, like people who learned on old stuff kind of, fight for the old way. So, there's going to be more of these. It makes it easier to program. And so that's why I did decide to get it with the smart pendant instead of the traditional, because I have a bunch of traditional. If you have a traditional on here, it's gonna be just like a FS100 with more functions that you could do, like the Move S, and I think it's got weave in it, different things like that. If you've got this pendant, it's the same informed language that the FS100 or the DX100s would have, but you got more information here, okay? So, like, where you traditionally can get pretty used to your X, Y, and Z and your rotates about and keeping your thumbs there, you're going to keep all of your hand back here. Dead man switch is right here. So let's just go to jog. You'd have to turn the servos on with this button. So now that is saying that, servo on ready. And then you would turn the dead man switch on and you can hear the brakes come off. Okay, so I like it better having both hands, or at least both thumbs, that I can work on. One of the things that does different is, these keys are not labeled other than just plus or minus. And what happens is, depending on what frame you're in, be it smart frame, joint, Cartesian, or user, you'll get SLURBT right beside there, Or like if we go into world, Cartesian coordinates, would get X, Y, Z, rotate about X, rotate about Y, rotate about Z. Okay? And it works exactly the same way. I don't have this brush set up as a tool in here yet, so the rotate's not going to be perfect, but I can go here, I can set the speed, I can do it from here. One of the problems I hate about the touch screen is I'm not watching the robot while I'm doing it, or I can do it from here. There are little nubs so your thumb can find where you're at without looking, but we can rotate about those points. We can go in, move about those points. And when we program, all we have to do is right there where it says teach. Instead of having the enter button, we just push teach. One of the differences is instead of having to do an insert or modify enter when you're in something, like if you want to modify a point, all you have to do is move to a new point and hit that reteach button. Okay. So it's not that different. You've got the same, instead of having a move J, you've got a joint move. It's a lot easier to change things. It's a lot more intuitive. So if you want to move that to a move J or move L, you can do a linear move and change it just like that. If you want to change the speed, you can change it just by clicking it. It's so easy that once you get your students on the little FS100s and you get them comfortable on there, all you have to do is throw them on here and they'll figure it out, because the language is more, it's the same inform language like you'd use for an inform list, but it has more information on there. So instead of a move J, it's a joint move. Okay, that makes sense. If I want to do something that's more in the inform list, all I'd have to do is down here is commands. I'd hit command, and then I can go and do, general, motion, IO, math, all of the things that were in the inform list. I've got, there. And the one thing that is good about this is it's documented in here. So you've got a lot more important information that comes up on the screen. You don't have to go take a code, Google it to see what, the error is, or, what label does. Specifies a label for a jump, can be used as an alternative to while. It has a lot more information there than the little touch screen on the traditional pendant. It's real intuitive about moving. One of the things I do like about the GP8 carts is that little laser sensor down there. So instead of having to have instead of having to have a wall up, you can program that, and then it's going to scan, however far out you put it, and if you get within there, it's not going to let it run, so it'd be like the door is open. And Keyence, it's very simple to program the room, because you'll have to go in. Well, they should do it. They messed up on mine, so I had to go reprogram it to get the legs, so they weren't actually triggering it, right? So you just go in, draw, it'd show you a kind of a sonogram of what's in front of it, and you can go in and draw lines to make it so, okay, well, this leg is fine, even if that's within that cone of vision, ignore it. So Keyence is, one of the top, light curtain laser sensor companies, and so having that, which is a couple grand anyway, you can get the program that you modify that with for free. That teaches them another little aspect of something that they will probably see, because we got a lot of light curtains and laser sensors out especially that are key ints. And so that's a real low learning curve. They're going to be able to pick it up real quick. And if you've never dealt with it, you'll be able to pick it up real quick. And that makes them more confident, because if they see it in the field, they know what that is. They know how to deal with it because they have before. So that laser sensor, magnificent. So that keeps us from having to have this, enclosed. If they get too close to this, it's going to shut it down. To program the ancillary stuff, your cube interference zones and stuff like that, you just go in like you normally would. Your menu structure is pretty much the same, where robot settings has all the things, your tools, your user frames, your zones. It actually makes it a lot easier to make things like tool control points, because when we go into a TCP, it shows you a picture of where things need to be, right? And it gives you little explanations about, why they, certain things need to be where they are. So I love the GP8 cart. If I had it to do over, I would still get the smart pendant, just because that's where everything's headed. I'll show you one of the things that it makes it easier for somebody to learn, because like if you're doing X, Y, and Z, you have to kind of think in your mind where X, Y, and Z are. Well, with this, it's got a gyroscope in it. So let's go back to jog, and we're going to go to SmartFrame. What SmartFrame does is it knows where this is, and instead of thinking in X, Y, and Z, you think of come toward me, away from me, to the left of me, to the right of me, up and down. Okay? And so to do that, you need to tell it where it is, so you'd calibrate it, and it says stand directly in front of the robot. You push calibrate when you're directly in front of the robot, and now instead of X, Y, and Z and all that, you have toward and away and rotate about those. So there's no thinking anymore. So if I'm standing in front of it and I do forward, well, I need to turn on, and this is good. So it has a lot more verbatim, why it's not letting you do things. Like the safety, switch is not turned on, turn it on. So right now, if I go toward, it's going to go toward me, which is, X plus in our world coordinates. If I go over here and I do toward, it's coming back toward me there. If I go over here and hit toward, so I've done nothing but hit toward, and it's going toward wherever the pendant is. Okay, so the issue that I have with that is just making sure people are still spatially aware of the robot and thinking in those X, Y's, and Z's. I don't know if that's just because I, feel like it should be harder than it is, especially now that they have stuff like SmartFrame. But it's a good tool in the arsenal, because it does put people up there quick. I'm still in the mindset of getting those, the early students on the FS100 learning it the hard way, and then okay, if you need to use SmartFrame, go ahead and use SmartFrame. But all it does is it keeps track of where this pendant is in relation to that robot with the gyroscope and the accelerometer, and you start thinking of it as that tool control point as coming towards you or away from you or left and right, depending on where you're standing. If you set it up right, if it's hanging or if it's on the wall, it does kind of make things a little bit easier than trying to, it makes things a lot easier for students instead of having to, think in terms of X, Y, and Z changing. But, us, it's pretty easy too. There's not there's not a whole lot of difference. These are faster. They can do more welding type moves. I've been doing some videos for class that I'll put up whenever I'm done, but they were worth it. Like, I think they were like the same as those little, FS100s, and I think they're doing away with the MHJs anyway. Like, so this is where they're going. It looks better. Like, functionality, it does, more with the spline moves and stuff like that. So you wouldn't need spline necessarily in material handling, but if you did want to get them to learn how to do, complex curves and stuff like that, that's the way to go. So this is essentially like having a welding robot without the welding head on it. I think I've rambled enough, but if y'all have any questions, like, I'll try to open up my YouTube stuff with, more of the, I'm trying to get it so that we can use, come from a lot of the same data. So we're not teaching the same thing over and over again. Like, okay, this is how you turn on the controller, and this is how you, initialize the pendant and stuff. I put them as pre-labs, so they watch it before they come into the lab. And I'd like just a ton of them for all of us to, put in, glean from, and use wherever we need them, so we're, not having to do the same thing over and over again. I can't really think of much difference in the smart frame having spline and just being a lot prettier of a robot and bigger. There's a lot of stuff on this that actually, you can make labs out of, where you're palletizing stuff, and, it's got little lines through there that you can program the robot to follow those lines. It's got a laser on it, so you're not accidentally jamming a pointer into the board. It's a better thought out cart than the little FS100 carts. Like, I would much rather get these all day. Okay. If you get the traditional pendant, there's next to no learning curve other than if you want to throw in spline. And, it looks exactly the same. The inform list, everything is that same. If you get the smart pendant, it's about a 15-minute learning curve for you. It's more straightforward, and it has everything written out. Like, if you push this button, it does this. So if you forget how to do an interference zone, when you go in to set an interference zone, it says, okay, go to this, go to this. Same with user frames. Like, instead of having to remember, what XX is or, origin, it tells you right there, go to this point, and that's going to represent this. So it makes things easier. I still think they need the FS100 in addition to it. I just haven't decided if they should be, first or not. I kind of feel that way. Just give them, make them learn the hard way, and then show them little, tips and tricks with this. So it's got, Chris knows that I don't like, educational lab equipment that much, where it's single use or whatever. This thing is about my favorite trainer. Like, it's, I don't have much to say about it other than once it does get up to speed, it shakes a little bit, but not bad. All right. I hope y'all have a good one. Hope I didn't ramble too much. Y'all have a good